Hi, everybody. This is Silvio Canto in Dallas, Texas on Monday, May the 12th. And as we like to do on Mondays, well, this week we're going to do it on Monday. We're going to be chatting with our good friend Bill Katz, the editor of Urgent Agenda. Bill, it's a great honor to have you back. You know, what was that show that said if it's Sunday, it's Meet the Press, right? So
Right.
if it's Monday, it's Bill Katz. So that's
Okay.
we'll
I'll take that honor.
you'll take that honor. Yes. So thank you. So great to always have you
Thank
with
you.
us. I got to begin, though, with a little humor in these crazy times. Yogi Berra, whose real name is Lawrence Berra,
Yes.
was actually born in St. Louis on this day in 1925. He passed away at age 90 in 2015. A lot of people, they weren't, I guess, because he played so long ago. A lot of people didn't realize how great he was, but he won 3 MVPs in the American League, most valuable player. And he also was a part of 10 Yankee World Series champions, including 5 in a row at one point between 43, I think 47 and 53 or something like that in that time frame. So this guy was quite a baseball player, quite a catcher. And I remember somebody saying one time that he wasn't real fast, but he was a good runner because he knew
Yeah.
when to actually take the base. It,
Yes.
so anyway, there's so many things that he said over the year, Bill. Now, for you, he means he was the catcher for the Yankees when the Dodgers were playing back in Brooklyn. So I'm sure you
Yes.
have more memories of him.
Oh, absolutely.
Obviously,
Number 8.
my biggest memories of Yogi Berra are documentaries, of course, but watching him on the Tonight Show, cracking all these quotes, like the future ain't what it used to be,
Yes.
stuff like that. So Yogi Berra would have been 100 today, Bill.
Well, we remember Yogi, even though he was the opposition, with great
Right.
affection. He was a very good player.
He
He was very
was.
funny at times, and we honor him today. And as Yogi would have said, uh, um, when you come to a fork in the road, take it.
Right. Well, I love the remark. I'm going to try to remember the right story, but apparently he met the wife of the mayor of New York at a dinner sometime,
Yes.
and the lady said, "You look pretty cool, Yogi," or something like that. The lady said, and he looked at her and said, "Well, you don't look too bad yourself, lady." And I don't think he understood she was the first lady of New York, but nevertheless, that is Yogi or something. That was kind of the story. I may be a little bit off on my story, but he was such a character, and
Yes.
and I don't, I guess there are always characters in sports, but maybe it was easier to be a character when you didn't have so many games on TV, and a lot of what you knew about these players was watching them play or reading the press, Bill.
That's right. That's right. And one of the great things about Yogi Berra is he never hurt anybody. He never tried to
That's
hurt
right.
anybody. He was never mean.
Right.
He would make jokes about people, but they were always in a good spirit.
Right.
And he came up with the yogiisms, or a good writer did. We don't
Right. We
know,
don't know. Right.
but we always waited for them. You know, and I think I believe that he once addressed a college commencement or something like that, and he got up and made his speech, and it had all these yogiisms, and of course the faculty members were appalled that this was their graduation, but all in good spirit.
Well, as long as we're in good spirits, Bill, I have a birthday in a few weeks. Just, I might want you to get me a plane.
Oh, I
747. Do you know how I can get one?
Oh, sure, sure. Why, Silvio, you hit it right on the head because I was going to get you
Oh,
a Boeing 747. We have friends in a country called Qatar, and
okay.
they happen to have an extra Boeing 747 lying around, and they want to give it to a deserving person like you, or they would like to actually give it to the United States government to be used as Air Force One. That may be a little problematical, but I think if you need the plane, I could probably arrange to get it.
Well, do you
I
think
know.
it'll fit in a regular residential garage? Because those 747s, last time I I saw one at the airport and actually flew one a couple of times. They're pretty big. I'm trying to see how I put that in my residential garage. I have to move some things around in there. Maybe move some of my old baseball gloves and baseball cards and move them to another place so I can fit the plane in the garage, Bill.
Well, that's part of the gift. It's part of the gift is it's a country called Qatar, as I think I mentioned. Don't listen to these people who say it's a dictatorship and it's anti-American and it runs Al Jazeera. They don't know what they're talking about. They will send you a crew that will take the plane apart each night
Right.
and store it in different parts of the garage, and they will guard it with their military, and it will always be ready to operate.
Right.
And I think that it's these are wonderful people. They really are. They give big gifts. They give them with an open heart, and I again ask you not to have any doubts about it. I mean, some people might say they're trying to buy your loyalty. Oh, no, they're not this way at all. This is
No.
given generously, very
Well,
generously.
I understand that with the plane comes a crew of like 50 people who break it down into small little boxes so I can put it in the garage.
Yes, that's exactly what they
Yeah.
will do.
Yeah. And then these 50 people, they feed themselves. I don't have to feed them. I don't have to pay for their health insurance. That's all provided by the host country.
Yes, that's right.
And they just, what can I tell you? I mean, who would turn down a gift like that, Bill?
Oh, I can't imagine any intelligent person would turn it down. I mean, who wouldn't want to fly in a plane that is a gift of $400 million from a country that is pro-American one day, anti-American the next? They like to diversify it. They're diverse, into diversity.
Right.
Now there may be special rules for women. It is the Middle East after
Right,
all,
right.
so you might have
Yes.
to explain a few things. But I would take it in 2 minutes, and especially it comes with all the crew members
Right.
it comes with medical care. You can apply it to an insurance policy that they will also provide.
Right.
And who could possibly turn that down?
Well, all I tell you is that before I accept your wonderful gift, I'm going to check with the White House
No.
and see if there are any restrictions on accepting a gift like this from maybe
Yes.
something in the Constitution about restrictions for the
Yeah.
president to get a gift like this. I don't know. I'll have to check with the White House.
Yeah, that there are some complications.
Because I may give it to the White House myself after I get the plane.
Yeah.
I may turn around and give it to the White House as a contribution to the White House. So I mean, there's a lot of potential in this idea, Bill.
I think there is, and there are some complications.
Of course, there are.
In the Constitution, which, as we know, were written by old white men.
Yeah, before the aircraft. So they could have never thought that a president would get a 747.
That's right.
I mean, they thought he might get a nice little stagecoach, but little nice stagecoach with some horses.
Yes, horse and wagon. That would be very noble, also.
That's right.
But the plane is available, and it's something that I think you would treasure, and there would be nothing required of you. Maybe a few things would be required to just, in your work, mention Qatar positively. It gets so much bad publicity from bad people. Just mention it's really a delightful place.
Well, one thing I would do, Bill, is that I would make sure that every week when we do these podcasts that we do it in the plane.
That would be a good idea.
I would fly to New York.
Yeah.
Well, I would I would go to New York, pick you up, and then we can do the podcast somewhere between Texas and New York,
That would be terrific. And the plane comes with wonderful electronics.
It sure does. And it has a great Wi-Fi signal. So this would all be first-class audio. But in all seriousness, two big questions about this. One is, can the president accept a gift like this? And the other question is, why would it take this company Boeing so long to make a Air Force One for the president? That's the part that I thought that would have been priority.
Yes.
and the Boeing Corporation would have made it, in whatever time they they would. So something, this whole story about why it takes so long to make this plane. I hope that doesn't tell us about U.S. manufacturing, Bill.
Well, I think what you're referring to is the fact that a new a plane for the White House was ordered in about, I think it was 2016 or 2018,
Yeah,
to
that's
be
right.
used by the president. You know, the term Air Force One simply applies to any plane that when the president is actually aboard.
Hmm.
And if it was flying for some other purpose, it would not be called Air Force One. Air Force One is a temporary title. Um, but and the two planes were ordered from Boeing because you have to have a backup for the presidential plane, and they were supposed to be ready, I think, about now, and they're having a lot of problems with it, with the construction, with all the requirements of that plane to be used by the president would have. Electronics and all kinds of defense mechanisms, and it's just not ready. And the president, how can I forget the name of the president?
Trump.
President Donald Trump apparently is very annoyed. He wanted the new planes. They're not going to be available during his term of office. And
Hmm.
he's a man of luxury. He's a man of means. So they offered him as a gift to the U.S. that plane, a $400 million Boeing 747. And he accepted. Apparently, he's accepted it. Now, there's been very little public comment from the White House about this,
Right.
but he implied this morning that he had accepted it, but he understands there's a lot of resistance to it. I mean, many people are up in arms. They say it's just wrong for a president of the United States to accept a gift like that. There are provisions in the Constitution that may make it impossible for him to accept it, and that we will have our president flying around in an aircraft that was given to the United States by a foreign dictatorship. In fact, it's a monarchy. I
Right.
mean, they don't have senators and congressmen; they have a king and a queen,
Right.
and this is not usual for the United States.
No.
And I think Americans feel a certain loss of pride. They feel, I think, a certain loss of dignity that a president would accept this. We have to ask: is there something that has to be given in return? I mean, Trump is a businessman. He said today, "Well, anyone who objected to this is stupid." Well, I don't think so. We have something called national pride. We
Right.
have something called the dignity of the presidency, and a lot of people, as you know, are coming out dead against this. And there are people even from the Republican Party. I don't think it's going to go through in the end. I think
No,
something,
I don't think so either. I don't
yeah,
think it should go through either, Bill. I think it should be forgotten very quickly. I just hope it is. I hope I hope they cancel the idea, and maybe Qatar can donate the plane to, I don't know, Zelensky in Ukraine or something. I don't know what it
yes,
was, somebody else. But I
yes.
don't. Yeah, the more I think about this plane, it's not a good idea. But I think for me, the big question also is, how is it possible that one of our defense contractors, Boeing, and I'm not knocking the company because they make great airplanes. I don't want to be too critical of them, but it does worry me a little bit that they couldn't build this plane of this seriousness sooner. I mean, this plane was supposed to be flying, I think, President Obama at the very tail end of his presidency. It
Yes.
should have been flying the first time President Trump was president, definitely President Biden. And here we are. Yeah, I think there's a problem. But let's move on to some other issues today. There was a hostage that was released. I thought that was, it's always great when these hostages get released. Good for the family. But I believe this was the last American, Bill. Is that correct?
This is the last known
Yeah.
American hostage to be alive. I mean,
Okay.
there are several others where there's a question mark. He's an
Yeah.
American. He has dual citizenship. He's American and Israeli,
Okay.
and he was taken prisoner on the day of the horrible attack by Hamas on October 7th, 19. Uh,
Yeah. 24, right? Or
1924.
23, I think it
It
was.
was actually 23, yeah.
Yeah.
And and he has been imprisoned ever since. And they released him, saying it's an act of goodwill. That's not an act of goodwill. It's
Yeah.
propaganda.
Right.
They release it. They can say, "Look, we are the people who released this hostage. We wish him well." After holding him for over a year in horrible conditions,
Right.
but they will get the in some circles in this world, and even in journalism, they will get the credit for it.
I thought it was interesting. This young man. I read a little bit about him, and this young man, apparently American born, I guess born here,
Yes.
went to Israel to serve in the military.
Yes, he did.
Yeah.
I think one of his parents is Israeli.
So he has dual
I
citizenship,
think
I
so.
guess.
Yes,
This
yes.
young
He
man.
has both American citizenship and Israeli citizenship.
Well, he may
Uh,
be flying back with President Trump, from what I heard, or it will be meeting President Trump, I think, or something. I heard something that like that, unless he's already flying back. I assume he's going to go to a military base and they'll check him out before they fly him back to his mom or
yes,
to his
yeah.
family. I certainly
I, I
hope so.
I think he will probably, knowing Trump, and now we know him a little bit better. I think he will exploit it for his own personal benefit. I think it would be wrong. I think he should be taken directly to his parents and let them enjoy this in privacy.
Yeah, I mean, Trump will get the credit whether he sees him or not, just by the mere
Yes.
fact that he was the president when he was released. So I don't think he has to exploit the young man. I mean, Trump will get the credit. Bill, the U.S. Iran talks, before we get to China, the U.S. Iran talks continue. And I hear that we're making progress. I know you're concerned about the fact that sometimes delays work on more for Iran than for us. But I mean, progress is being made, I guess, from what I'm hearing, Bill.
Well, I am concerned because one of the techniques used by the Iranian negotiators is to stall for time.
Right.
Their greatest asset is time, time, time. Their defense system, their air defense system, was almost entirely destroyed by the Israelis, and this will give them the time to repair it, and
Mm-hmm.
which means all that uh, good work by the Israelis will go to naught. They'll probably repair it by
Right.
bringing in even better defense equipment from one of their allies like Russia, and we will basically be giving them a gift of an air defense system, which they will use against either our allies or us in certain
Yeah.
circumstances.
I like to see this thing I like to see Trump put a little more pressure on Iran, saying, "Hey, here's the deadline. If we don't have something before this deadline, all bets are off."
Well,
And something like that, so that they realize that there's a date here where those aircraft carriers in the Mediterranean may be sending some planes to them, Bill.
yes. Well, it's interesting that you mentioned that because he has theoretically made the case and made it very plain that if we don't get what we want by a certain date, and that date is middle of next month,
Hmm.
then we will just break off the negotiations and do what we have to do, or something like that. So he will claim that yes, I've given them a deadline, and I will enforce that deadline. They will never have the atomic bomb. Whether he will enforce anything is a question, because they could pull something at the last minute and say we are ready to make a deal with you. We will need a couple of weeks more to get uh, our, our our deal together. But we are optimistic. We're going to accept some of your terms. Could you just give us that time? And knowing Trump and the way that offer will be made, it will be virtually impossible for him to turn it down. So we're right on the cusp of success of getting what we want, and then when the date comes, they say, "Oh, we're running into a problem. Could we have a little bit more time?" The Iranians are brilliant at dragging things out. They literally have written the book on this, and I don't trust anything they say. They excuse me, I've got a bad cold.
Yeah.
I don't trust anything they say. They have broken every deal they have ever made, and I think that. But there is a faction in the Trump administration that believes that we're making too much of Iran having an atomic bomb. They don't seem to understand, or maybe they understand and just don't care. They say that Iran is not an enemy of the United States. Um, we should just let them develop an atomic bomb, and if they have it, we don't think they're ever going to use it because they would be destroyed in return. And let's go on to something more important. And that attitude is pervasive in the this administration.
Mm.
Trump, I think, has a lot of people in his State Department who actually came from the Obama State Department, and that was the Obama idea that Iran is not really an enemy. We should make them into a friend and get rid of the Israelis, and everything will be okay.
Well, the
And
problem, though, that I see, Bill, sorry to interrupt you, but the problem that I see is that the Israelis will act if we don't.
yes,
And so, I mean, and it may take them a lot more time because they have, smaller country, but they certainly have the willpower to do it. And they're just as aware as you are that they could be rebuilding the air defenses. So I think my biggest concern, though, is the American public. Has the American public been prepared for a military action in Iraq? I mean, in Iran, that is not going to be easy. I mean, it's going to take probably several weeks of bombing, and it would probably, I would assume, it would require some kind of congressional resolution. I mean, so we went through this with Iraq, and to his credit, President Bush went out to the country and sold the country on it.
yes.
So far, President Trump really hasn't.
Well, no, he hasn't. And what is so discouraging is neither has the press. I mean, this is for some reason this story just hasn't registered with the
Yeah.
American people that we are talking about an enemy nation which is developing an atomic bomb which could be ready in weeks if they
Right.
wanted to use it. And they're also developing intercontinental ballistic missiles which can carry that bomb. And they are developing the kind of missiles that can carry that bomb to the United States.
Right.
And that is something that Americans, if discussed with correctly, would understand that this could be their lives involved
Right.
and the lives of their families.
Well, it certainly would be Europe's. I mean, Europe
Oh,
would
yes,
certainly be
sure.
an even easier target because they're a lot closer. No, I just wish that President Trump would address this and say, look, this is what I may have to do.
Yes.
And these are the reasons why. I mean, President Bush did it with Iraq, and I thought he prepared the country quite well for over a year. I mean, it was not a shock when we went in Iraq. I mean, he had been preparing the country for it, and I wish President Trump would do something like that. I personally think that there has to be a deadline for Iran to act, and if they don't do what they're supposed to do, then I would support a military action. I really would, because I see the big picture. I mean, having Iran with nuclear weapons would change the Middle East in a very negative way. So
It would change the whole world because
whole
then
world,
the
yeah.
United States would be susceptible to a nuclear attack.
That's
And
right.
what if they sent one missile over
Oh yeah.
and it was aimed at New York and it worked?
Oh, I know. It's
I
pretty
mean,
scary.
we would be a different country the next day, basically a supplicant and a country that couldn't defend itself. And who wants to be an ally of that country?
Right. And also, why take that chance?
That's right.
I mean, why take the chance of exposing yourself to I mean, we know that these people are crazy. So why give crazy people weapons that they can use against us? I mean, that's my thinking. Well, let's move on to China.
Sure.
And China and the U.S. had some talks, and I guess we have a 90-day deal, which is, I suppose, better than no deal. But it does look like we're getting closer with China, even though it's only 90 days. I think China maybe was saving a little face and only doing it for 90 days. But my guess is that this will move beyond 90 days. And I'm not trying to be 100% optimistic, but I like to be optimistic. I think other countries will now speed up a little bit and try to get their deals done. And honestly, I think this may look pretty good for President Trump, let's say, come Labor Day, when he's got most of these deals done, and he apparently will have the resolution through the Congress or reconciliation. So, it seems like, at least from where I'm looking at it, Bill, it seems like some things are falling in place for President Trump, the trade deals and the reconciliation bill.
They appear to be falling in place. My viewpoint on this, as it is on everything else involving money, which is what involved here, I will believe it when I have in my hand a signed check deposited and cleared. Then I'll believe it. Not before. There is always a hang up at the last minute, and the Chinese in particular are past masters at making a deal and then at the last minute saying they're pulling out and saying, "But if you give us additional things, we'll make the deal." Because if President Trump goes all the way to that point, he will not want to be humiliated. And
Right.
if it goes to that point and the Chinese do pull out, and he has to go to the American people and say, "Well, we didn't get the deal we wanted," he will be horribly humiliated
Mhm.
and embarrassed, and it could destroy his presidency.
It certainly could. So I'm hoping he's listening a lot to the Secretary of Treasury, who I've come to respect a lot. It seems to know what he's doing,
Yes.
and I hope he lets him handle the negotiations, just like he's letting Rubio handle that other negotiation with India, which I think worked out okay too.
Hmm.
Uh, so he's got some good people. I have to tell you that I'm really impressed with Rubio and Besant. I think these are two good cabinet members
They are.
that are really the kinds of people you want to have in place at times like these. Well, let's go to speaking of China and the world in general, the price controls on drugs. I'm usually not in favor of price controls, but I think here, this is not a economics 101 class on price controls. This is, I think, a much more complicated problem than that, because we have all these drugs that are sold elsewhere for a lot less than in the United States. And I know, for example, in Mexico, you have American companies that manufacture drugs down there. They sell cheaper. So somebody's subsidizing who? Somebody. I mean, somebody, it seems to me that somebody is subsidizing somebody.
Yes.
And Trump believes that it's the American consumer who's subsidizing, or taxpayer who's subsidizing all of this. I'm not familiar enough with the issue, other than, Bill, drugs do seem to be very expensive these days. And the more difficult your problem is, it's almost incredibly expensive. And some people almost have to have Medicare pay for the whole thing because it's so darn expensive, Bill.
That's usually when they reach the age where they can have Medicare pay for the whole thing. Very good points. The question here is this: let's say that they pass all this legislation and the president decrees that they can charge only a certain amount. What if the company comes back and says, "Mr. President, we can't do this on the budget you're giving us, and we're going to have to withdraw all of our research on heart disease and have somebody else do it, maybe somebody in a foreign country." And the president is then stuck with a situation, and it could be a big company. It could be, like Squibb or any of them. And apparently in the past they've done things like that. When if you put enough regulations on them, they'll say we have to shut down our research section because we can't afford this. What does the president do then? Does he force them to make the drugs? Does he arrest them? Will there be a penalty? What if the company says we're going to be out of the drug business? We
Right. We're
just
going to
can't
shut down. Yeah, we're going to
shut
shut
down.
down the plant because
Right.
we can no longer afford it. Yeah, I mean, it's a complicated issue,
Yes.
but so is the whole idea that these drugs are so much cheaper. Now, they may not be the same drug.
Yes.
Okay, which I think you and I were talking about this before we went on the air, that in some countries it's cheaper, but it's not exactly the same drug. But it does seem to be that it does seem to me that somebody's subsidizing somebody.
Yeah. Well.
and
Yes.
and it looks like more and more it's the U.S. taxpayers, either through Medicare or these health insurance companies. Uh, I mean, healthcare is becoming so expensive, Bill. It's ridiculous. I mean, we thought with Obamacare that all of this was going to get fixed away.
Well, we did,
Yeah,
and there have been some things about Obamacare that have worked well. I mean, I have health insurance, and I have good health insurance, and my health insurance plan includes drugs.
right.
And
Same here. I have the same thing. Yeah.
yeah, I think most people do who have worked in a place or gotten Social Security benefits or whatever. And I recently came close to running out of one of my drugs because of a technicality, and they couldn't issue it to me. And I was running out, and it was a very important drug.
Hmm.
And I said, "Well, if I didn't have the insurance, what would it cost me?" And it was something like $600 for a bottle.
Right.
Whereas because of my insurance plan, it's more like $15.
Hmm.
That's quite
Right.
a difference. Quite a difference.
That's quite
So
a difference, and I just wish there was a way for some of the smart people who know about these medicines to realize, if they don't already, that what they are doing is, I mean, this is unsustainable. Costs like these,
yes,
at some point, people cannot pay it, and people will die literally because
yeah.
they cannot afford it. Let me move on to a couple of quick issues here as the time flies. Bill, I guess maybe you and I should do our next podcast from a ICE detention center,
Oh
and
boy.
we can interview some Democrats.
Yeah, yes, they will be there
They will be there. Yeah.
to make certain that the murderers and accused murderers and rapists that are in the detention center are well taken care of.
Yes. I mean, you talk about, they must think these people are political prisoners.
They
I
probably
mean, that,
do.
which is pretty insane. You're talking here about some pretty bad people. I mean, these people are not in that detention center because they were writing bad checks.
That's
They're
right.
in there because in some cases they committed some atrocious things. But I just have to wonder what has happened to the Democrat Party that they're engaging in little tactics like these. I mean, it's beyond common sense. It's just crazy that what we're seeing. I mean, I don't know. I mean, do they hate Trump that much? Do they want to be again? I mean, something is going on in that party, Bill,
Well, this
that
is
it's crazy.
yes, and the lack of support that they're getting from the American people on this issue is breathtaking.
Yes.
They now talk. You've heard the language that an issue is an 80-20 issue
Yeah.
or a 70-30 issue. In other words, 70% agree with the with the issue and 30% are opposed to it. And an issue like this is like an 80-20 issue.
Right.
80% of the American people will approve of what the government is doing. 20% will not, and they choose the 20%.
Right.
They choose the 20%. And
And if they were talking about political prisoners, I might be joining them, but they're not.
no,
I mean, this is the thing. I mean, they're trying to present themselves as a profile in courage, you know, and believe me, I know what a political prisoner is. My dad's cousin was in jail for 15 years in Cuba
well,
as a political prisoner. So I know what that is. And there's nothing like this here. This is simply some bad people. And but have you noticed something, Bill? They're all basically Democrats in very safe districts.
yes, that's it. And they believe that this is what the Democratic Party should stand for. And
Right.
as you say, they're in safe districts, and they have to basically say these things because the party is today controlled from the far left,
Right. And
and
that's it.
this
That's
is
it.
they're going through their testing period, and they have got to have the support of the squad and of the hard leftists in the party if they have to get any consideration at all. I cannot imagine someone like John F. Kennedy even competing for the Democratic nomination for president today. He would
Right.
never be even noticed because he was too patriotic, was a war veteran, and had done some good work in Congress and written a few books. That they don't care about that. They just care about, are you the right racial group? Are you the right national group? Do you have the support of the people in the squad? and the hard leftists in Beverly Hills, and that's what they've turned the Democratic Party into, and they think that 20% that is really much larger, and that they are the ones who represent the real feelings of the American people, which is
Well,
ridiculous.
which is ridiculous too. And this is one, you know, one of the best things going for President Trump is the Democrat Party today
Yes.
that have been totally useless, completely useless. And speaking of a character, Bill, how about Justice Sotomayor, who goes to a was it an ABA meeting? I think it
Yeah.
was, and she decides to let everybody know that she's part of the resistance. And I'm sitting there saying, wait a minute, isn't this lady supposed to be in the Supreme Court, you know, hearing both sides and writing an opinion based on facts? How can, you know, if you're President Trump, wouldn't you object to having this lady hear one of your cases or vote on one of your cases? I mean, it's obvious how she's going to turn out to vote, Bill.
Of course, and what she's doing is absolutely wrong. I don't know that much about the required ethics of the Supreme Court. The Chief Justice of the Supreme Court is actually the Chief Justice of the United States.
Hmm.
He is in charge of the court system, the federal court system. I don't know what they could do about her. Do they reprimand her? Do they say go sit in the corner, or do they say, well, she's entitled to her opinion as long as she recuses herself on certain cases? It's a very hard situation. Justices of the Supreme Court are not supposed to be involved in politics.
Right.
They're not supposed to make political statements. They're not supposed to indicate which political party they favor. They are supposed to be neutral and to try the case as good lawyers and ethical lawyers. But I don't know what they can do about it.
Well, I don't think maybe they can put her in a penalty box like they do in hockey,
Yeah.
and she can sit out 3 or 4 cases or something. But it does seem to be so inappropriate for a justice to do that. And I would say the same thing if any of the conservatives did it. But to my knowledge, I mean, I don't remember Justice Thomas or Justice Alito going to a MAGA trial or a MAGA rally here recently.
Yes.
I don't remember any of that. I mean, I think they've been fairly responsible. But
Yeah.
I will tell you something. I am disappointed a little bit with the Chief Justice because he's always talking about how important it is to keep partisanship. Or he objects when people say an Obama judge and a Trump judge, and I agree with him. We shouldn't look at them that way. But on the other hand, he has allowed a lot of this to happen, particularly with these district judges. Now, I believe that there's an opinion coming up here pretty soon that will bring an end to the district judges or their national injunctions, that is.
Yes.
I believe that's coming. Everything I've read
Yes.
is that decision is coming, and that will put an end to all of those national injunctions. But, I was quite taken back by Justice Sotomayor going to an ABA and saying that her presence there was a sign of solidarity.
Yes.
Solidarity with who?
Well, with the ABA, which is a left wing organization, and I think they were happy to have her endorsement. It's not the old American Bar Association. It's now a political organization, and look, she can basically say, "Catch me if you can,"
Right.
because at any
Well,
time she can resign. At any time she can um, uh, hand in her badge or whatever they call it, and go home.
well, that's what I think. I think she ought to, resign from her seat and join the resistance.
Yeah.
And heck, she might even get a job at MSNBC. You never know.
Yes. A very good one.
That's right. And that way she doesn't have to worry about what she says. But I just thought it was so inappropriate, really, of a justice to engage in that kind of really, I mean, obvious politicking, which they need to stay away from. I mean, that's all I can say. That's not their mission in life. Their mission in life is to call balls and strikes, which is what they're supposed to do as best as they can. I mean, we're not asking these people to be perfect, but when I was reading about this lady, attending the convention or whatever she attended, it felt a little bit like a umpire going to a Brooklyn Dodgers fan convention,
Yes, right.
and saying, I'm with you, those bum Giants. Let's
Yeah,
make sure they never win again,
I think I think
And then the
it's a
next thing
good comparison.
the umpire does, he's calling the game,
Yes.
and people are saying, wait a minute, aren't you the guy who said this? I mean, I'm being facetious, but that's how crazy this thing
Well,
is.
this is not, remember, a new issue. It
Right.
goes way back, long before the current administration. Uh, I, I became aware of this concern about judges in the 1950s when I was very young, and there was a response to the to Brown versus Topeka Board, which is the famous Supreme Court decision on desegregation, and the people who were opposed to the decision say what we need is a new chief justice, and we're
Mhm.
going to get the new chief justice, and we're going to get our country back. And this is the way the talk has been ever
Right.
since. The
That's
Supreme
right.
Court has become a political issue.
What's interesting about segregation is that less than 10 years later, they were able to do it through the Civil Rights Act, right?
Yes.
So, in a way, I don't know if this is a completely crazy question, and we don't have a lot of time. But if the court had not voted the way it did on Brown versus Topeka, do you think that they would have had the votes in the Congress later to actually do it through legislation, or do you think that that Southern bloc of senators would have never allowed that to happen?
I think that you may raise a good point, and I think that's exactly what would have happened. The Southern Bloc was Democratic.
Right, right.
It was called the Solid South,
Yes,
and they were segregationists. The Democratic Party at one time was a segregated party,
right.
and I think it would have been virtually impossible to get the legislation
To
through.
get the 60 votes or whatever it is they
Sure.
needed to pass it through the Senate, because I think there was a Civil Rights Act of 1957. I remember reading
Yeah.
about that didn't get through for that reason. Well, Bill, I will continue looking forward to our plane, the
Yes.
747,
I'll have it sent.
and we'll let me see some of the styles for the interior before you
Okay.
order it, okay? Because
Absolutely.
I want to make sure that they have enough room to watch a baseball game and that kind of thing inside the plane. So I just want to make sure that that a plane of that size that I get to pick the interior. I don't want
Of
to get stuck
course.
with an
Of course.
interior that I don't like.
Absolutely necessary. And before we deliver the plane to you, I want you to know it's going to be sent to the car wash, and so it'll just glisten when it
That's right.
arrives at your home.
Well, no, I know. I'm looking forward to it, and you're such a nice man for giving me this plane. I'm really grateful that you thought about giving me a 747 for my upcoming birthday, and I will let you know when it is, so you make sure you get it on time.
Oh, that's wonderful. Just wonderful. I'm looking forward.
All right, Bill. As always, thank you for your time, and we'll do it again.
Absolutely. Looking forward to it,
All
Sylvia.
right. Thank you so much. Our good friend, Bill Katz, the editor of Urgent Agenda. We always get together with Bill once a week, talk about lots of different things. And we had a lot to talk about today, from this thing about the plane, the presidential plane, but a lot of other more serious stuff like Iran and the talks with China and the economy and everything else that is happening in the country. Thank you for listening. This is Silvio Canto in Dallas, and we'll talk to you later. Bye-bye, everybody.